2024 is fast approaching, so I wanted to quickly look back at this ending gaming year and go through my favorite games of the year. Overall, 2023, in my opinion, was an incredible year for games, giving us a wide variety of great games, big and small. Sure, there were a couple stinkers and disappointments along the way, I'm looking at you Redfall, but besides the couple dips, it was probably the best year for gaming for me in a long time. But let's get into it. Before I jump into the top 10 list, there are a couple honorable mentions I wanted to share. First off is the duo Jedi Survivor and Final Fantasy XVI. I enjoyed both games quite a lot, both had great stories that intrigued me with beautiful performances, and both had fun and engaging action combat. These games would have easily been in my top 10 if it wasn't for their poor performance. Jedi Survivor is one of the worst PC ports I've ever experienced with awful stuttering, and Final Fantasy XVI's performance was just really bad, dropping the resolution to like 720p just to hit 60 FPS. I know for some these kinds of issues doesn't affect that much, but I have hard time to neglect them, so they drop in my rankings. Second honorable mention goes to Hi-Fi Rush. It's one of the most creative and visually striking games I played this year, but unfortunately I have zero sense of rhythm, so it was impossible for me to fully enjoy the game because I just sucked at it. But I do have immense amount of respect for it. Third honorable mention goes to the two Western Trails releases, Trails to Azure and Trails into Reverie. My love for the Trails franchise is not a secret, and both of these were great additions to the series. The only reason they are not in my rankings this year was because I had already played the Japanese versions a couple years ago, so it felt wrong to rank them for this year. And the last honorable mention goes to Void Stranger. I haven't been able to play too much and I haven't beaten it, but even after few hours I'm so hooked on it. Its puzzle gameplay is really satisfying and I'm loving its soundtrack and art style. But now it's time for the main show, my top 10 games of 2023. Jusant was a late year surprise for me that I just decided to give it a shot as it was on Game Pass. I'm pretty mixed about Don't Notch's previous games, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but Jusant is such a brilliant, relaxing game. There is no dialogue, no other characters, and you just climb while learning about the history of this world through notes and messages. The game is a beautiful mix of visuals, music, and simple game mechanics that combine into a very zen-like chill experience, and sometimes that just hits you the right way. Like I mentioned before, I love Trails and the vibes Falcom creates with their games, and Legend of Nayuta was no different, even if it is a different style game from the mainline Trails series. I didn't fully love the combat, but the characters and the story were really charming. I'm really excited to see how the game might end up connecting to the other Trails games, but even if it never does, it's still a fun game to experience on its own. Now here is a game that suffered from major overhype before its release. Then the game came out and most people turned on it fast. And yes, Atomic Heart was not the Soviet Bioshock people were making it up to be, but goddamn if I really enjoyed it. The quirky sci-fi world was really funny but unnerving at the same time, and the main character was so dumb in just the right ways. It is a really unserious game in many ways, and I think that's why I love it. The gameplay did suffer from its open world nature, but when it found its focus, it was really fun to play. I wasn't the biggest Harry Potter fan growing up, but I do enjoy the movies and the magical world they created. Having an original game and not a movie tie-in set in the world had a lot of promise, but there was also a lot of pressure to really nail the magic of the world, and Hogwarts Legacy really succeeded in it. The world is so beautifully realized and oozes the same magic that was in the movies. The design of Hogwarts was really good, and it really doesn't get more cozy than Hogsmeade. I know some people didn't really love the large open world outside of the castle, but I quite enjoyed it. Flying around with your broom never got old, and the combat was surprisingly fun. I love Assassin's Creed and I'm a big fan of VR games, so AC Nexus had a chance of being something special for me, and that it fortunately was. Ubisoft did the impossible and translated the full AC experience to be played in VR, and it's amazing. The parkour and climbing feels so natural, and I don't even have words of how satisfying using your hidden blade is. It's easily my favorite VR game of all time and one of the coolest experiences I had this year. Fire Emblem Engage was my second trip to the Fire Emblem universe. I played Three Houses couple years ago, and while I did enjoy the tactics gameplay, I thought the split nature of the story and the hub activities really dragged the game down for me. Luckily, I loved my time with Engage. The story didn't take itself too seriously, and all of the characters were such lovable dorks. A lot of the fan service with the rings and the past protagonist went over my head, but it really didn't make my experience any worse. And the gameplay was really amazing and offered perfect levels of difficulty. Insomniac created one of the best superhero games with its 2018 Spider-Man, so the sequel had a lot to live up to. Spider-Man 2 ended up surpassing all my expectations for it, improving the gameplay in every way. The movement is better with the wingsuit, the combat is more fluid and has better momentum, and I found myself enjoying the side activities more when the random crimes was no longer a completion factor. It took a while to adjust to the dual protagonist, which created a slightly less focused story, but at the end they turned it into a strength. I love musicals and I love Greek mythology, and Stray Gods, the role-playing musical, has them both, so surprise surprise, I love it. The story is incredibly emotional, heightened by the great musical performances, and the way your choices affect the music is mind-blowing. It's truly a one-of-a-kind game. Choosing my game of the year between Alan Wake 2 and the game I ended up going with was incredibly hard. I love Alan Wake 2 so much. It's one of the most magnificent audiovisual experiences ever created that just kept blowing my mind with each step. The way Remedy mixes live-action content, music, and other mediums with its gameplay is so creative that you can't help but to appreciate it. The story is great and has so many layers that will be peeled for the years to come. And the game was so finished that just added to my enjoyment of it. I absolutely can't wait to see what they do next with their Remedy universe. Even though Alan Wake 2 did come really close, my favorite game of 2023 is Baldur's Gate 3. I can't believe I wasn't even going to play it because I have never cared about D&D and CRPGs, but the game ended up totally overtaking my life for a month. The care that Larian has put into this game is felt with every moment. I have never played an RPG that felt so alive and responsive to my actions. There were countless moments where my choices ended up having massive and interesting consequences, sometimes instantly, sometimes 50 hours later. The same goes for the combat, where there seems to be an endless amount of tactics you could experiment with and find fun ways to get past combat encounters. And on top of all that, the game has some of my favorite video game companions of all time, whose stories and personalities were a joy to uncover. It's a remarkable game that will probably end up being in my top 5 games of all time. And there it is, my favorite games of 2023. I'll put a link in the description for my full list of games I played this year. I would love to hear your favorites, so drop them in the comments down below. I also wanted to thank all of the viewers for the support on my videos these past few months. I really enjoyed making videos and will continue to do so in 2024. I'm not gonna have a particular schedule, at least at this point, as I only want to review games I actually have interest in playing, and I want to experiment with different style videos as well, but I hope you join me in 2024. Thank you and have a great day.